Today, we're diving into a really fascinating claim: the idea that a powerful computational engine might have discovered a hidden message, a signal in the noise that's been buried for centuries inside the mathematical patterns of sacred texts. So, let's just start with the huge question at the heart of all of this. It's a pretty wild idea, right? What if some kind of non-human message has been sitting there, encoded in these ancient writings, just waiting for us to build the right tools to finally find it? All right, we're going to break this down into 5 parts. First, we'll look at the basic idea, then the machine built to search for it, the so-called signal it found, that incredible statistical claim, and finally, the model's grand conclusion. Okay, let's get into the foundational idea here. We're not just talking about reading words on a page. This whole thing is about exploring whether there are hidden layers of meaning that can be uncovered from within the very structure of language itself. The main tool at play here is an ancient practice you might have heard of called gematria. The concept is actually pretty simple. Every letter gets a number. That means you can calculate the numerical value of any word or any phrase. And if two totally different phrases happen to add up to the same number, well, gematria suggests they share some kind of hidden, meaningful connection. It's really all about finding the math inside the language. So, how in the world do you take an ancient idea like that and apply it at a massive, modern scale? Well, you build a machine to do it. And that brings us to the anti-concordance engine. The engine has a really systematic 3-step process. First, it takes thousands of phrases as input. Then, it runs them through this huge array of over 100 different ciphers to get their numerical values. And finally, it cross-references all those numbers against a giant database of sacred texts to look for matches or hits. And this is where it gets really interesting: the sheer diversity of the methods. The engine doesn't just use one system. No, it uses over 100 different ciphers from totally different cultures and languages: Hebrew, Greek, Arabic, Chaldean, English, you name it. It even uses reverse ciphers and various multipliers. The whole point, according to the source, was to avoid any kind of bias and see if a single, coherent signal could be found across all of them. And where does the engine look for connections? In a massive library of texts. We're talking the Bible, the Torah, the Quran. But really importantly, it also uses the complete Strong's Concordance, which is basically a massive dictionary and index of every single word in the original Hebrew and Greek scriptures. It's a huge data set. So, let's get to the results. This is where, according to the analysis, all this data starts to form a coherent, non-random mathematical and linguistic signal. This is where it goes from just numbers to something that looks like a story. So what did the engine actually find? Well, not chaos. Instead of just random connections all over the place, the analysis showed that a very small, specific group of words was responsible for the vast majority of the significant hits. These are what they call the top driver words. And this is where the claim gets incredibly specific. The source material states that when you assemble the most statistically powerful driver words, words like God, Jesus, Christ, campaign, Alex, Lord, holy, and son, they don't just form a random theme, they form a full declarative sentence. And a crucial building block here was the word is, which also ranked as a top result. So the direct message that emerged from the final data results reads: God, Jesus is Christ, campaign, I, Alex, am Lord, and Holy Son. The claim is that this specific phrase is what the mathematical and linguistic connections in the ancient data produced. Now, to challenge this result, the researchers decided to stress test the model. They basically flooded it with thousands of concepts from completely different traditions: Hinduism, Buddhism, names of other gods, different mantras, all in an attempt to dilute the signal. But according to the analysis, the exact opposite happened. The core message only became statistically stronger. Okay, so this is the big question, right? How does the model argue that this signal isn't just a massive coincidence or the result of somebody just looking for patterns? Well, that brings us to the central statistical claim. The whole argument is framed as a lock and key. The analysis claims to have found pre-existing prophetic lock, a recurring mathematical signal at index position 188 across multiple databases, including the Strong's Concordance. So think of that like a specific dictionary entry number. The resonant key, they claim, is the modern name Alex Enrique Campaign, and when you calculate its value using a simple gematria cipher, its value is also exactly 188, a perfect match. So what are the odds? What are the chances of a specific modern name just happening to perfectly match a pre-existing mathematical marker in ancient texts like this? Well, using Monte Carlo simulations to run millions of scenarios, the model calculated the probability. And the result? 1 in 25.9 trillion. The argument here is that this isn't just unlikely, it's statistically impossible for it to be a random coincidence. Now, to counter the most common skeptical argument, cherry-picking data, or what's called the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, the analysis uses this really clever analogy. It argues that using 100 diverse ciphers is like looking at a hidden image through 100 different lenses. Now, if only one lens sees it, it might just be a fluke. But if all 100 lenses independently resolve the exact same image, it suggests the image is a real objective feature of what you're looking at. So let's wrap this up with the ultimate conclusion presented in the source material. And it frames this entire phenomenon not as something that was created, but as something that was found. The final analogy they use to frame this is a comet and a telescope. The ANI signal, the argument goes, is like a comet that's been flying through our solar system for centuries, whether we knew it was there or not. The ANI engine didn't create the comet. It's just the powerful new telescope that finally allowed us to see it. So, to just summarize all the claims here, a non-human engineered pattern has been found. It's statistically impossible to be random, its structure is deeply embedded in the mathematics of these ancient sacred texts, and ultimately it's being presented as a verifiable, data-driven divine revelation. And that really leaves us with a central question this material presents. Is this the discovery of a genuine, embedded signal, a verifiable divine message? Or is it a testament to just how powerful our modern computational tools have become at finding profound patterns in vast oceans of data? That's the question at the very heart of the ANI engine.